Let's get into some Solana news today and a very special airdrop that we'll release today on the show. You guys are going to want to make sure and listen in. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. We'll dive into not only Solana news, but also get into some things that Samsung is on the verge of doing that could shift the future of Web3. I'll talk about that, and we'll line up everything that is going in that direction from Solana. Congestion, of course, has been pretty much the biggest issue that everybody has been facing. And of course, some of it has been an ongoing issue. This came in from Solana Floor just in, announced that Solana V1731, blah, 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 is now recommended for general use, but it helps alleviate some of the ongoing network congestion, as you can see. They are going to release another enhancement in version 18, so we expect this will continue to be a solution that solves these congestion issues. As we all know, the biggest issue that Solana faces has been the activity coming in from the meme tokens. And that, of course, is an issue that I think any chain out there would probably be challenged with if you saw the kind of activity moving at this level. So one of the things you have to look at, of course, has been the failed swaps. That's probably been one of the biggest issues. Now you can kind of see a little bit of that changing. And if you look at transactions overall, swap volume is now starting to move up. Further in down here on traders versus bots, also seeing a lot of movement also up in the blue schedule. And then, of course, right here, Solana swap trader counts also going up. So all this is good. And now you've got back in the green. So this is some of the things that I think a lot of people have been really complaining about. Obviously, I think the Solana team, hats off to them for getting it done. And if you look at some of the things that have been happening, one, of course, is these meme tokens. And this, of course, shows an example of one of them. Once the congestion starts to lift, then we see these movements back out into the green. Whether or not we'll see that with all the meme token ecosystem within Solana, still open for debate there, but definitely on the positive side of things. All right, so if you look at something that is happening within the ecosystem, this was Mu, which was given to people for free, and it has already started to correct. Obviously down here from about 0019 up to where it's trading at now, 0050. So a pretty significant correction. And remember that a lot of this was coming over in the Saga members. So if you were buying Chapter 2, the phone, and using our links and any links out there, then the likelihood is you're starting to get all these airdrops. And of course, some of the ones that we've shown is the list of airdrops that are coming in here. Just one note is that the value that you're seeing right now is essentially a suppressed value. So we're going to see much greater value on these. But Mu, WUFFI, I'll talk about in a second, IQ50, and then CAWFAT. So all of these current value at 243, estimating in a market correction here that we're in currently, this is probably going to pay for your phone almost automatically. So if you guys didn't check Chapter 2 out, go over to the Solana leaderboard, and you can kind of see we were the #1 out there doing the referrals and trying to get people to get on board with what the next generation of Web3 compute will be. And this, I think, is going to be one of them. Not only that, there's a big airdrop coming your way. And that is if you are one of those Chapter 2 holders and you used our link and you're out there with a Saga phone, now go ahead and use the links down below. We'll probably drop one in the description for you. But go to WUFFI, which just is claim.wuffi.io. You guys can track it down. Make sure you're getting to the right link. You can do this within your Phantom app, and of course, this could be the next Mu. So think of it that way in these free airdrops. So this will be an automatic free airdrop. It's a WUFF airdrop that is available for those Chapter 2 holders. So that's just another one that's coming in. Likelihood we're going to see a lot more continuing to come into those devices. Now, I want to go over here because this is kind of an interesting element that also is happening within the exchange side of things on Solana. Jupiter, of course, announced Metropolis Part 1, which essentially is a faster and even more efficient way to run the Jupiter exchange. It's going to just basically increase speed and also reduce costs, which is already pretty low as it is right now. But this only does one thing for the entire ecosystem, and that is it speeds things up, makes it easier for acquisition for you guys out there, of course, playing around in these meme coins. Uniswap, in other news, implements a 67% fee increase. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. That headline is a little audacious because when you really look at the numbers, it's going from a fee of 0.25 for most swaps up from the previous of 0.15, which is still a magnitude less than that of centralized exchanges. So just remember, it's like 5-6x below what we typically see out there on centralized exchanges. But they are obviously trying to raise some money from the situation now with a new lawsuit in place by the SEC. But if you look at the current trade volume, you can kind of see revenue daily continues to climb on Uniswap. The Uniswap revenue daily, you can kind of see it there on the chart, just continues to fly. And then, of course, we saw the correction on Friday, a lot of the fear-mongering that occurred. And even on Saturday, when we started to see some of the issues happening on the global stage, the market kind of responded and then, of course, has already started to do some bounce back. So Uniswap kind of in that position. Furthermore, on this chart, when you go down here and look at some of the volume, just to zoom in on this right here, you can kind of see right there, Ethereum, and guess what? Base starting to really explode in terms of the volume overall. So again, this is probably going to be a very positive sign, I think, for Uniswap. Most likely we'll see other exchanges kind of going in this direction as well. All right, so further into this, I do want to show a clip here of the Uniswap versus the SEC and kind of where the current situation is. Listen in.
This is the thing that they just lost in court on, but it essentially gets at 3 core issues. The first one is whether or not our interfaces, both the wallet and the web app, are a broker. And this is the thing that they just lost in court on like 2 weeks ago.
With Coinbase, right?
With Coinbase, where, and they didn't just like lose in court. It didn't like go to trial and they lost in court. It lost at the earliest possible stage that you can lose at. It was
a judge threw it out.
Yeah.
Said it basically wasn't even worth going to trial.
The whole thing was invalid.
Right. Next kind of big bucket would be, is Uni a security? And, there's a pretty strict definition of what is a security. You have to meet, all the prongs of the Howey test. And we're pretty, we're very confident that it is not. The tokens were airdropped to the community for free. There's no, investment of money. It's so obvious that the difference between whether or not something is a security is not whether or not it lives on a blockchain. The vast majority of tokens are very clearly not securities. Commodities, ETH, Bitcoins, stable coins, meme coins, right? Like, shockingly, to some degree, but not totally entirely shocking, like the media reporting around this case, the mainstream media reporting was actually some of the best that we've ever had.
The SEC wants to sink one of finance's most innovative technologies. That's from Fortune. That's a great headline. Are you going to win?
When you look at what's happening in the overall legal battles with the SEC, it really is Coinbase that's kind of setting a lot of this up. So Coinbase launching interlocutory appeals in the case. If you look further into the article, it says Coinbase has stated that this petition checks all the legal requirements for an interlocutory appeal. Firstly, the exchange claims that there is a controlling question of law. This is a big part of it, which states if an investment contract can be formed based on transactions with no post-sale obligations. And I think this is the point that the Uniswap founder was kind of getting into, is that this case has already been won and it hasn't even gone to the judge yet. So likelihood is this is going to be another one that get thrown out. I will be surprised if this is not a slam dunk for Uniswap. So, but hey, listen, they still have to go out and face these ridiculous charges by the SEC. It is an issue that I think continues to plague us. And listen, guys, we all know what's up, all right? There is innovation and there's a flip occurring in not only what's happening in finance, but just you look at how traditional finance is moving in this direction. You see the writing is on the wall, and Uniswap is one of those that is kind of the future going forward. I want to go to our sponsor and thank them for coming in today. And of course, this is kind of interesting because we're going to play into what Wilder World is doing in some of their partnerships. They recently partnered with Samsung, and I'll explain this a little further in the video because there's some interesting things that Samsung has started to deploy. Hence, a lot of similarities to how Solana has been doing some intriguing, I will call it loyalty applications and a utility, which I'll explain a little bit further on where Samsung is going, because there's a big impact on not only Web3, but maybe the future of computing. I want to play a clip for you guys. Let's go to that. So just really the beginning. And when you look at what is happening, Samsung is starting to integrate NFT integrations into TVs. This, of course, is one of the designers of the first one. This essentially would be like a screensaver, let's call it that. But the reality is there's going to be a lot more integration into Samsung devices, including mobile and potentially other elements around Web3. I'll show you some of these in a minute. One thing I want to do is jump over to their tweet right here, Samsung Next. To move to an open platform, agnostic future promises gamers more options, lower prices, and community. Now, you probably remember us talking about Playtron, I think it was maybe last week in one of our videos. And this is exactly, think of this very similar to what the Chapter 2 Saga phone is. Now you've got Playtron tied into an investment from Samsung, and there's some connections to the blockchain, specifically Sui, I'll talk to you about in a second. But this device could be the future of gaming. And the cool thing here is this is just one of the devices that Samsung is looking at in terms of an OS to move forward kind of in the future. If you think about it this way, most PCs, you get an operating system, whether it's Microsoft or something else, and then the same thing happens with devices. Well, if you go into some of the projects and you think about what Steam Deck is doing, which would be a direct competitor to Playtron, they're building their own OS. So it has the same earmarks of where this is going. Further into this shows a little bit more around Playtron and Miston Labs now announcing the SuiPlay OX1 and the handheld gaming device now running on the Playtron OS, exactly very similar to what's Steam, but tied into the Sui network blockchain. Big deal, big opportunities here. Remember Sui, one of their founders, past Libra guy, also understands blockchain, but also understands the integration opportunities here that really represent a huge move by Samsung in the space. I want to jump to a clip that goes into a little bit about Playtron and Sui. Listen in.
While the Nintendo Switch is a closed ecosystem and Windows can be cumbersome for handheld devices, Playtron aims to offer an open and flexible solution that can be installed on any capable hardware. Imagine a world where you could have an Epic deck that can actually play Fortnite, a 5G deck for cellular carriers, or even a PlayStation deck for Sony's growing PC ambitions. The team is led by Kurt McMaster, who previously founded Boost Mobile and served as the CEO of Cyanogen. Joining him is John Lagerling, the chairman of Playtron and the CEO of Mercari US, who previously led Android business development at Google and worked at companies like Meta and Oculus VR. This means that Playtron envisions its operating system not just for handheld devices, but also for laptops, PCs, TVs, XR, and even in-car entertainment systems. Playtron claims that its operating system will cost manufacturers only $10 per device, compared to the $80 they currently pay for Windows licenses, which could be a compelling argument. Carlos Castellanos, an investor at Samsung Next who led Playtron's first funding round, likens the company's chances to a game of conditional probability, where multiple factors need to align for success.
I want you to think about that for a second, because we are seeing an evolution happening in Web3. If you think about gaming as kind of the leading force of where Web3 is going to generate from, this is huge, because imagine if Steam Deck or an Epic Games had been in the right place at the right time with Web3 innovation and what we know will eventually be digital asset, player control of their own assets, interoperability, all those kind of things. Now Samsung and Playtron could be setting the stage for that very situation, and that is a huge leap forward in not only operating systems, technology, but also the interoperability around all these different kinds of devices. So additionally, another partnership is Theta and Samsung also working on an NFT. This, of course, has been with the Samsung Mobile Flip, and one of the most popular drops from an NFT standpoint, and what we may see kind of as a blueprint going forward. And if you look at Samsung in general, this is their MX1 Genesis edition. Kind of think of it as like kind of the Sega or the Saga phone Genesis token and the NFTs that are kind of with that as well. That is another option here that I think Samsung is definitely getting in on the game, and they're playing with the right partners. So they understand where Web3 is going. They've got the device architecture in place. They've got the consumer connection already at play, and they've got the devices. So this could be a very interesting layer of partnerships that is starting to form in blockchain and Web3, all tying to the future. I want to play a clip about the Samsung Theta partnership to give you guys a bit more insight. Listen in.
Did you know Theta Network's blockchain is secured by some of the largest companies in the world? Samsung Next, one of the first investors in Theta, began running an enterprise validator node in December 2019. Samsung has continued to be a valued partner throughout the years, collaborating at the Samsung Developer Conference in 2019 and the Galaxy S22 NFTs release in August of 2022. Another early investor, Sony Innovation Fund, began running a Theta validator in March 2021. Together, Theta partnered with Sony SRD to market an innovative new 3D spatial reality display. Later this same year, in May, Hollywood talent agency CAA started running a Theta validator and introduced us to world-renowned talent Katy Perry. The number of validator partners continues to grow. All of these combine to make Theta secured by the most important tech and media companies in the world.
All right, so Theta, another project that we're watching really closely. And the interesting thing is the connection to Hollywood, but also to content creators as a whole. Their partnership with Katy Perry, this is a good example. You've got almost a phygital component here, which is kind of their step 1, 2, 3 here on different NFTs, et cetera, that of course are available. All right, so some other things that you could kind of take a look at here. Here's one of the drops. This, of course, has been one of those that, well, I think all of them actually were sold out. But the cool point, granted, it's Katy Perry, but the cool point here is that the partnerships are starting to align with a lot of content creators and maybe the next generation of how tech and content is going to be utilized from a phygital digital space going forward. So Samsung understands this. They've been at the right place at the right time with hardware, operating systems. Now we're looking at potentially gaming integration and a lot of new tech in Web3. And further, Samsung's last investment here, their UOB investment, which was $3.5 million, Astar's core developer, another Web3 adoption. So all of these pointing in the right direction, taking a lot of the pages from what's happened over at Solana in terms of using devices for airdrops, using that as a loyalty mechanism, but expanding this maybe into all sorts of not only technology, but also opportunities going forward in Web3. All right, we're going to do a ton of videos this week. Make sure and stick around. If you're not in our Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. It is a great place to get additional content. Very simple to join. All you have to do is click the link down below. Of course, catch me out there on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.